Welcome to another deep dive.
Yeah.
You know, I think this one is going to be pretty interesting. We're going to tackle a question that's been pondered by, I don't know, philosophers for centuries.
Yeah.
What is the formula for happiness?
Yeah, the age-old question of joy and contentment. It's, a universal human pursuit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to help us unpack this a little bit, we're going to be diving into a story from a Hindi motivational video.
Okay.
And it features a wealthy merchant, a say.
Uh-huh.
Now, a say, that's a term for kind of like a respected businessman, an elder in the community.
Okay.
Who seems to have it all, but still feels empty inside.
So he's achieved kind of worldly success or material success, but lacks inner fulfillment.
Absolutely. I think we can all relate to that a little bit, right? That feeling of wanting more.
Right, yeah.
Even when we seemingly have everything.
Sure.
So this say, he's, despite his riches, he's desperately seeking happiness. He consults wise men, he tries different approaches, but nothing seems to work.
Yeah.
Finally, he hears about a Baba.
Okay.
Now, a Baba's like a holy man, almost like a hermit,
right,
living a simple life out in the jungle. And this Baba is rumored to hold the secret to true happiness.
The classic kind of trope of the wise man, the secluded or eccentric figure that lives outside of society and has this kind of special knowledge.
Totally.
So
our Stacey sets off on this journey to find the Baba.
Okay.
Right? Hoping for some, life-changing advice.
Uh-huh.
And so now, picture this. He arrives at the Baba's humble dwelling, and he's carrying this bag filled with all of his most valuable possessions.
Wow.
Jewels, money, the works, right?
Okay.
He throws this bag at the Baba's feet and pleads for guidance on how to find happiness.
Quite a dramatic gesture, right? Offering it all up for this glimpse of happiness.
Yeah, and here's where it gets really interesting. Instead of offering, some sage advice or a comforting proverb,
yeah,
the Baba does something totally unexpected. He grabs the bag and runs off with it into the village.
Oh, wow. So the Baba steals all of his possessions.
Yeah.
What do you make of that from a storytelling perspective?
Yeah. I think it's brilliant because it immediately throws us and the say off balance. Right. So here we have this, wealthy, successful say who suddenly finds himself chasing after what he believes is his entire fortune.
Right.
And it sets up this fantastic exploration of attachment, fear, and the true nature of happiness.
Right. It really does force you to ask yourself, what would I do? In that situation.
Totally.
What if my perceived source of happiness, the thing that I'm clinging to so tightly,
right,
is suddenly snatched away?
Yeah.
It challenges our assumptions about what truly matters.
And that's precisely what the Baba is doing in a very unconventional way.
Yeah.
Right. He's not simply telling the say how to be happy.
Right.
He's creating an experience.
Right.
Right. A visceral lesson
yeah,
that forces the say to confront his own attachments and anxieties.
It's experiential learning at its best.
Exactly.
He's not passively receiving this information.
Right.
He's actively engaged in a situation that's going to challenge his worldview, his very definition of happiness.
So now we have this sake. He's running through the village. He's convinced that he's been robbed by this, so-called wise man.
Right.
And get this, the villagers, instead of being, shocked or coming to the say's aid, they start following along almost like it's a parade.
Oh, wow.
They seem to be in on the joke.
They're complicit in the Baba's scheme then, or they understand something that the Saya doesn't?
It's a great question, right?
Yeah.
Are we, the audience, also missing something here?
Yeah.
Is there a deeper meaning to this seemingly absurd chase that we haven't grasped yet?
Yeah, it's definitely intriguing. It makes you want to know more.
Totally.
So we left off with this image of the Say, right? This wealthy merchant chasing after his bag, his perceived source of happiness, with the villagers kind of following along, almost like a knowing smile.
Yeah, it's like they understand the Baba's methods, right? This unconventional way of teaching. They've probably seen this play out before.
Right.
What do you think happens next? Does the Baba actually make off with the say's fortune?
That's a good question. But before we get there, I think it's worth pausing for a second and thinking about the symbolism of the chase itself.
Okay.
What do you think it represents, both for the Sace and for us as the listeners?
Well, for the say, I think it's clearly a moment of panic and desperation.
Yeah.
Right? He believes he's lost everything. The thing he equates with, his happiness and his security.
Yeah.
It's such a powerful illustration of how attached we can become to material possessions.
Yeah.
How we can mistake them for the source of our well-being.
Exactly. And the fact that the villagers are kind of unfazed by this whole chase suggests that they've learned a different lesson.
Right.
They've perhaps realized that true happiness isn't found in these external things, but in something more internal, something less fleeting.
Yeah, it's like they've already achieved a level of detachment that the Sais is still striving for. Right? They're not chasing after the bag because they understand that its contents don't hold the key to true happiness.
Right. And this brings us to another kind of interesting point. Why do you think the Baba chose to run?
Okay.
Instead of, say, simply lecturing the Say on the nature of happiness?
I think it's because actions speak louder than words, right?
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to, such a deep-seated belief as the Say's attachment to his wealth. By creating this experience, this visceral chase. The Baba's forcing the Saya to confront his own anxieties and misconceptions head on.
Yeah.
It's a much more powerful lesson than any lecture could ever be.
Absolutely. It's experiential learning at its finest.
Yeah.
The Saya isn't passively receiving information, He's actively engaged in a situation that's going to challenge his worldview. It's very definition of happiness.
So back to the story. Where does this chase lead the Say? Does he ever catch up with the Baba?
Well, the story says that he leads the Say on this merry chase all over the village, out towards the jungle, and then, poof, he disappears. And the Say, exhausted, bewildered, eventually makes his way back to where he left his car, just utterly defeated. And you know what he finds there?
I'm on the edge of my feet. Don't tell me the bag is sitting right there untouched.
You guessed it. The bag is exactly where he left it by the bush near his car. The Baba never intended to steal it. He was orchestrating an experience, a lesson.
Wow, that's incredible. So the Sea goes through this whole ordeal, this roller coaster of emotions, only to find that what he was desperately chasing was right there all along.
Right.
It's like a cosmic joke.
It is. It's brilliant storytelling. It plays on our expectations, our assumptions about how a wise man should behave. And in doing so, it highlights the absurdity of our own attachments, the lengths we'll go to for things that ultimately don't bring us lasting happiness.
It makes you wonder what was going through the Thiai's mind at that moment when he saw the bag. Was it relief, confusion, gratitude?
I imagine it was a mix of all of those things, but maybe even more importantly, it was a moment of realization, a glimpse of the truth that happiness isn't found in clinging to possessions, but in something, more profound, something more internal.
And that's where the Baba's real teaching begins, right?
Exactly.
The chase was just the setup, the catalyst for a deeper understanding.
Precisely. The Baba uses this experience to challenge the Say's definition of happiness, to point him towards a more sustainable, more fulfilling way of being.
I can't wait to delve into that part of the story. It sounds like the Baba has some really profound insights to share.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Say has gone through this wild goose chase, orchestrated by the Baba, and finds his bag right where he left it. What a powerful lesson in attachment and perception. But I'm curious, what happens next? Does the Baba just, leave him to ponder this experience on his own?
Not quite. As the Say is, catching his breath, clinging to his recovered bag, the Baba reappears from his hiding spot.
Oh, wow.
Imagine the look on the Say's face.
I bet relief, confusion, maybe a touch of anger.
Yeah, so what does the Baba say to him after all this?
Yeah.
He simply asks, "Now, are you happy?"
What a loaded question after all. He cuts right to the heart of the matter.
Right to the point.
How does the cell respond?
The Say, still clutching his bag, replies, "Yes, I am the happiest man in the world. You saved my entire fortune."
It's interesting that he immediately jumps back to his possessions, as the source of his happiness. It seems like the lesson hasn't quite sunk in yet.
Right. It highlights how deeply ingrained, our beliefs about happiness can be, but the Baba, wise as he is, doesn't let him off the hook.
Right.
He uses this moment to deliver a crucial message, a playful yet profound jab at the Say's attachment. He says, "Now run before I steal your bag again."
Huh. I love it. The Baba's got a great sense of humor, but on a deeper level, what's he trying to convey, with that playful threat?
I think he's highlighting the fleeting nature of happiness that's derived from external things, that Say's joy is real in that moment, but it's contingent on something outside of himself, something that could be taken away at any time.
Right.
The Baba's challenging him to find a more stable, more internal source of contentment.
It's a powerful reminder that true happiness can't be dependent on something as fickle as material possessions or, external circumstances. It has to come from within.
Absolutely. And this is where the Baba's teachings take a fascinating turn. He shifts from this dramatic action to words,
Okay.
explaining to the Say that the intense happiness he felt when he found his bag stemmed from appreciating what he almost lost.
You don't truly value something until you face the possibility of losing it forever.
Exactly. And this applies not just to material things, but to relationships, opportunities, even our own health.
Wow.
The Baba is urging the Seha and us as listeners to cultivate a deep sense of gratitude for the abundance we already have in our lives.
That's such a crucial point. It's so easy to get caught up in wanting more, bigger, better, that we forget to appreciate, the simple things we already possess, the things that truly matter.
Right. And the Baba goes on to say, start enjoying the happiness that has already reached you. Start considering what you've received as enough. He's advocating for this shift in mindset, a conscious choice to focus on the good in our lives rather than constantly striving for something more.
That is a challenge, to resist that urge to constantly compare ourselves to others, to always be chasing after the next thing. But the Baba's message reminds us that true contentment comes from within, from appreciating our present circumstances, not from external validation or possessions.
And he even acknowledges that sometimes loss can be a catalyst for this realization. He tells this idea, often you feel like you have nothing, but if what you have is taken away, you immediately understand its value.
Yeah, it's like a wake-up call, a reminder to not take our blessings for granted.
Exactly.
This whole story has been such a powerful reminder to shift our focus from what we lack to what we have, to cultivate a deeper sense of gratitude, for the good in our lives.
And the Baba doesn't stop there. He offers another piece of advice. A challenge to the Say and to all of us to live a life of purpose and meaning, he says. Do something so extraordinary that the world wants to be like you.
Wow, that's a tall order, but it's also incredibly inspiring. It suggests that true happiness is intertwined with making a positive impact on the world, with using our unique gifts and talents to contribute something meaningful.
Exactly. It's not just about focusing on our own happiness, but about living a life that inspires others, a life that makes a difference. And I think that ties back beautifully to the Baba's emphasis on gratitude. When we're content with what we have, we're free to focus on something bigger than ourselves.
This deep dive has been such a rich exploration of happiness.
It has.
We've gone from a hilarious chase scene to these profound reflections on gratitude, purpose, and the true meaning of contentment.
It's been a reminder that the formula for happiness isn't a one-size-fits-all equation.
Yeah.
It's a journey of self-discovery, of cultivating gratitude and finding purpose in our lives.
And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive, but I hope this conversation has left you, dear listener, with some food for thought. What are you grateful for in your life? What unique gifts can you share with the world? What would it look like to live a life so extraordinary that others are inspired by your example?
Remember, the journey to happiness is ongoing. Embrace the present moment, explore your passions, and never stop seeking that which brings you true and lasting joy.
Until next time, fellow knowledge seekers, keep diving deep